My sister got pregnant, her boyfriend left her, but my parents punished me and sent me to another state. But Nathan had always known that his sister, Lily, was the favorite child. It wasn't something his parents, Daniel and Sarah, ever said out loud, but it was in the way they treated her, the way they doted on her every whim, and the way they made excuses for her mistake. Growing up in Lily's shadow was something Nathan had learned to tolerate, but nothing could have prepared him for the ultimate betrayal, being exiled from his own home for something he didn't even do. Lily had always been the golden child. She was smart, pretty, and charming in a way that made adults fawn over her. Nathan, on the other hand, had always been the quiet one, the kid who did what he was supposed to do but never quite shined enough to earn his parents' praise. Every time Lily needed something, Nathan was expected to step aside. It was a pattern he had come to accept, but he never imagined it would go as far as being kicked out of his own house. When Lily got pregnant at 17, the entire house was thrown into chaos. At first, Nathan thought, just for a fleeting moment, that maybe this would be the moment his parents finally held her accountable for something. Maybe, for once, they would see that she wasn't perfect. But instead, they circled around her like protective wolves, shielding her from every consequence, every judgment, and every bit of responsibility that came with her choices. The father of the baby, Josh, was 19, unemployed, and had absolutely no plans to step up. He was the kind of guy who whispered sweet promises in the dark, but vanished when it was time to face reality. When he disappeared, leaving Lily alone with the weight of her decisions, their parents didn't get angry at him. They didn't even get angry at Lily. No, they turned their disappointment and frustration toward Nathan. "You have to be understanding," his mother had said in that infuriatingly soft voice she always used when making excuses for Lily. "Your sister is going through a lot right now." It wasn't long before Nathan started to realize that being understanding meant being invisible. Every dinner conversation revolved around Lily, her doctor's appointments, her cravings, her emotions. His father started working extra hours to provide for the coming baby, and his mother was constantly fussing over Lily as if she were some fragile doll about to break. Nathan? He may as well have been a ghost in his own home. And then, the final blow came. One evening, after a tense family discussion, his parents sat him down with solemn expressions. His mother's eyes were red, as if she had been crying, while his father just looked tired. Nathan already knew something was coming, but he had no idea just how deep their betrayal would cut. "Nathan," his father started, rubbing his temples as if preparing for battle, "we've been talking, and we think it's best if you go stay with your grandparents for a while." His heart slammed against his ribs. "What?" he asked, the word barely a whisper. "This isn't easy for any of us," his mother added quickly, as if trying to soften the blow. "But your sister needs a stress-free environment right now. The last thing she needs is any tension." Tension. That was what they were calling it. Nathan wasn't an idiot. He knew what they really meant. They didn't want him there. They didn't want his presence reminding them that Lily had messed up. They wanted a household where they could pretend everything was fine, where they could rewrite history so that Lily wasn't an irresponsible teenager who had thrown away her future, but a poor, fragile girl who needed their complete and undivided attention. He wanted to scream, to tell them that this wasn't fair, that he hadn't done anything wrong. But he already knew how that would go. His mother would cry, his father would get frustrated, and in the end, nothing would change. He had lost before he even opened his mouth. "How long?" he finally asked, voice hollow. His parents exchanged a glance, the kind that spoke volumes. They hadn't even thought that far ahead. They hadn't planned for his return because, deep down, they didn't expect him to come back. His mother hesitated. "We'll see how things go." Nathan felt sick. They were throwing him away, discarding him like an unwanted problem. All because Lily had made a mistake they refused to hold her accountable for. Packing his things was surreal. His room, which had never been particularly special, suddenly felt like a part of himself he was leaving behind. He shoved his clothes into a suitcase, grabbed his schoolbooks, and hesitated only once, when he saw the framed picture on his desk. It was from a few years ago, back when things weren't as bad. He and Lily, smiling at the camera, looking like siblings who actually cared about each other. He turned it face down. The ride to his grandparents' house was silent. His father drove while his mother sat in the passenger seat, occasionally sniffing as if she was the one being wronged. Nathan stared out the window, watching the familiar streets blur past, each turn taking him further from the home he had known his entire life. When they finally arrived, his father helped him bring his things inside, exchanging pleasantries with his grandparents as if this were some normal visit. His mother hugged him tightly before they left, whispering, "This is just for a little while, sweetheart." He didn't believe her. Standing in his grandparents' living room, suitcase by his feet, Nathan realized that this was it. His parents had made their choice, and it wasn't him. And the worst part? He wasn't even surprised. Nathan had never felt so abandoned. Sitting on the edge of the unfamiliar bed in his grandparents' small Florida home, he stared at the wall, his hands clenched into fists. His parents had sent him away like an unwanted guest, a problem they didn't want to deal with. Lily had gotten pregnant, Josh had run off, and somehow, he was the one who had to leave. His mind kept replaying the conversation with his parents, their empty reassurances, the way they avoided looking at him as they drove away. It was clear as day, he was never meant to come back. His grandparents, Evelyn and Robert, were kind in a way his parents had never been. They welcomed him with open arms, no judgment, no expectations. Just love. Real love. They didn't treat him like an afterthought or a burden. For the first time in his life, Nathan felt seen. His grandmother made sure he ate full meals, asking about his day, genuinely listening to his answers. His grandfather, a retired mechanic, gave him space when he needed it but was always there to offer quiet wisdom. They treated him like he mattered, and that was more than his parents had ever done. Still, the resentment burned inside him like a slow, smoldering fire. He struggled to sleep at night, his mind buzzing with thoughts of home. He imagined Lily, sitting at the dining table, eating the meals their mother prepared while their father worked longer hours to provide for her and the baby. He pictured their mother rocking Ava to sleep while Lily scrolled through her phone, barely acknowledging her own daughter. Nathan had been thrown away so that Lily could play the victim in peace, but he refused to let it break him. Determined to prove that he was more than just the discarded son, he threw himself into school. His grades, already decent, became his top priority. Every spare moment was spent in the small, quiet room his grandparents had given him, poring over books and online courses. That was where he discovered his true passion, technology. His grandparents had an old computer, slow and outdated, but Nathan made it his mission to fix it. He spent hours researching, watching tutorials, learning everything he could about IT and programming. He upgraded the hardware, fixed software bugs, and by the time he was done, the old computer ran better than ever. The feeling of accomplishment was like nothing he had ever known. He wanted more. Nathan spent every free moment learning. Coding, repairing electronics, understanding networks. He soaked it all in like a sponge. His grandparents noticed his dedication and encouraged him. "You've got a real gift, Nathan," his grandfather told him one evening. "You can do something big with this." The words stuck with him. By the time he turned 18, he had already built a small side hustle fixing computers and phones for people in the neighborhood. His skills grew rapidly, and soon, he was fixing more than just family devices. People from all over town started coming to him. With his savings from birthdays and odd jobs, he bought himself a better laptop, investing in his future in a way his parents never had. Then, he took the next step. He walked into a local tech store, resume in hand, and asked for a job. The manager, impressed by his knowledge, hired him on the spot. The pay wasn't great, but it was his own money, earned through his own hard work. Every paycheck went straight into his savings. College wasn't something his parents were ever going to pay for, so he was determined to make it happen on his own. Meanwhile, back home, Lily's life remained exactly the same. She had never been forced to grow up. While Nathan worked late shifts and studied for IT certifications, Lily spent her days at home, doing nothing. Their parents, ever the enablers, took on the role of raising Ava. Their mother doted on the baby, treating her like a second chance at motherhood, while Lily used the excuse of being a young, struggling mother to avoid any real responsibility. Nathan saw glimpses of their lives through social media. He wasn't blocked, but it was clear that no one expected him to reach out. His parents never called, never checked on him. The only time he ever heard from them was when his mother sent a short, guilt-laced text around Christmas. "Hope you're doing well, Nathan. Things have been busy here. Lily and Ava are great. We miss you." He didn't respond. Instead, he worked harder. Months passed, and his progress was undeniable. He earned certifications, proving his expertise in IT. His job at the tech store evolved from repairing devices to helping customers with complex issues. He made connections, met professionals who saw potential in him. For the first time in his life, he was building something real, a future that had nothing to do with his parents or their twisted version of family. But the anger never fully faded. Every time he heard about Lily's life, how their parents had helped her get a new car, how they paid for Ava's daycare so Lily could have some time to herself, it stoked the resentment inside him. They had resources for her. They had patience for her. But for Nathan? They had nothing. And then, out of nowhere, his mother called. His phone buzzed late one night, her name flashing on the screen. His stomach twisted. He debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of him. "Nathan," she breathed when he answered, her voice thick with emotion. "It's been so long. We just wanted to check on you." His grip tightened around the phone. Now they wanted to check on him? After nearly 2 years of silence? He kept his voice steady. "I'm fine." She hesitated. I wanted to tell you that Lily's been having a hard time. Being a single mom isn't easy, you know? She's doing her best, but it's a lot." Nathan let out a dry laugh. "I'm sure it is. She's trying," his mother continued, as if he hadn't spoken. "But she needs help. We all do." And there it was. The real reason for the call. They didn't reach out because they cared about him. They reached out because they needed something. His mother sighed, as if this was hard for her. "Nathan, honey, we were wondering if maybe you could come home for a little while. Just to help out. Ava could really use her uncle, and—" He cut her off, his voice sharp. "You mean Lily needs someone else to clean up her mess?" Silence. Then, in a small, wounded voice, she said, "That's not fair." "No," he shot back. "What wasn't fair was sending me away like I didn't matter. What wasn't fair was treating me like the problem just so Lily could be coddled. What wasn't fair was pretending I didn't exist for 2 years, only to call when you need something." His mother started to cry. "We love you, Nathan. We've always loved you. No, you loved Lily. I was just there." And with that, he hung up. Nathan sat in silence for a long time, staring at his phone. The weight of everything, his past, his anger, his sense of betrayal, settled over him like a heavy blanket. But as the minutes passed, something shifted inside him. For the first time, he felt free. He had built a life without them. He had proved he wasn't the useless, expendable son they had cast aside. And he wasn't going to throw it all away just because they finally realized that Lily couldn't survive without their constant hand-holding. He put his phone down, exhaled, and opened his laptop. There was still work to do. A future to build. And this time, it was all his. Nathan had built everything from the ground up. By 24, he was the owner of a thriving IT consulting business, living in a sleek condo he had bought with his own hard-earned money. His name was known in the tech world. Small businesses, startups, and even larger companies sought his expertise. He wasn't just another IT guy. He was a professional, a businessman, someone who had made something of himself without the help of the people who were supposed to love him the most. Meanwhile, his sister, Lily, was exactly where she had always been, at home, living off their parents, doing nothing. Now 27, she had never held a real job. She had no ambition, no drive, and no sense of responsibility. Josh, the father of her child, had disappeared years ago, and instead of standing on her own 2 feet, she had let their parents carry the weight of her life. Nathan had heard the stories from distant relatives, how his father, Daniel, was drowning in debt, how his mother, Sarah, was exhausted, working extra shifts at a part-time job just to keep up with the endless expenses. It was obvious that their finances had crumbled under the pressure of raising both Lily and Ava alone. Their retirement savings? Gone. Their plans for the future? Buried under the never-ending burden of their daughter's failures. Despite all of it, they had never once apologized. They had never acknowledged what they had done to Nathan. Never admitted that they had cast him aside like garbage when Lily needed a scapegoat. And yet, despite everything, they still had the audacity to reach out only when they needed something. The messages always came the same way, short, forced, desperate. "Hey Nathan. Hope you're doing well. Your father and I were wondering if you'd have time to talk. Things have been a little tough lately." Or worse, Lily herself would try, her entitlement bleeding through every word. "Hey little bro, long time no talk. So, I was thinking, Ava would love to see her uncle. Maybe you could come by sometime? Also, random question, how hard is it to get a loan for a car? Just asking for a friend lol." Nathan never responded. He owed them nothing. Not after what they had done to him. They had thrown him away so they could coddle Lily, and now, years later, they were reaping exactly what they had sown. One evening, Nathan was in his condo, sipping coffee after a long day of meetings when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. His mother. He debated ignoring it, but something told him to pick up. He pressed the answer button, bringing the phone to his ear. "Nathan." His mother's voice came through, thick with exhaustion. "It's been so long. How have you been, sweetheart?" He leaned back against his chair, eyes narrowing. "I'm fine. What do you want?" There was a pause. Then, a heavy sigh. "It's your father. He's not doing well. We're struggling, Nathan. The bills, Ava's school, groceries. It's getting to be too much." His grip on his mug tightened. He should have expected this. They had never cared about how he was doing. They only reached out when they were drowning. Maybe Lily should get a job, he said coldly. His mother let out a small, bitter laugh. Nathan, please. You know how hard it is for her. She's been through so much. She's doing the best she can. She's been doing nothing for 10 years, he snapped. She got pregnant, you covered for her. Josh ran off, you covered for her. Now she's 27, still unemployed, still living off you, and you want me to fix it? His mother sniffled. It's not about Lily. It's about us. We're your parents. Really? He let out a short laugh. Because I don't remember you being my parents when you sent me away like I was nothing. I don't remember you being my parents when you never called, never visited, never cared. The only time I hear from you is when you need money. We had no choice, she cried. Lily was a spoiled brat and you let her stay that way, Nathan cut in. And now you're paying the price for it. That's your problem, not mine. There was a long silence. Then, his mother's voice dropped to a whisper. Please, Nathan. Just a little help. For Ava. He felt a flicker of something at the mention of his niece. Ava was innocent in all of this. She hadn't asked to be born into this mess. But then he remembered the years of neglect. The years of being treated as an afterthought. The years of pain they had put him through without a second thought. I'm sorry, he said, voice devoid of emotion. But I'm not your safety net. And with that, he hung up. Nathan set his phone down and exhaled, his chest feeling lighter than it had in years. He had spent so long carrying the weight of what they had done to him, the anger, the resentment. But now he was free. Lily could rot in that house forever. His parents could deal with the consequences of their choices. And Nathan? Nathan had a life. A real one. One he had built with his own 2 hands. And he wasn't about to throw it away for the people who had never once fought for him. Nathan was in his office, overlooking the city skyline, when his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID. His mother. Again. He had ignored her last few calls, but something told him to answer this time. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was some lingering sense of obligation he wished he didn't have. Either way, he pressed the answer button and brought the phone to his ear. Nathan. His mother's voice was frantic, breathless, as if she had been crying. Oh, thank God you picked up. He didn't respond. Just waited. It's Lily, she choked out. She's been in a car accident. Nathan felt a brief flicker of something. Not concern, exactly, but a vague sense of disbelief. Lily, the same Lily who had spent years coasting through life without consequences, had finally hit something she couldn't avoid. What happened? He asked flatly. She broke her leg. It was bad, Nathan. The doctors said she's going to need surgery, months of rehab, maybe even a second procedure if things don't heal right. His mother sniffled loudly, as if that would soften him. She can't work. She can't do anything right now. Nathan almost laughed at that. Lily had never worked a day in her life. She had been pretending to look for a job for years, occasionally sending out applications just so she could complain about how no one was hiring. And now, suddenly, the fact that she couldn't work was a crisis? And, he asked, knowing where this was going. His mother hesitated for half a second before continuing. Nathan, we're drowning. The medical bills are piling up. The mortgage is behind. We've already taken out loans, maxed out credit cards just to keep things going. Ava's school tuition is due, and we don't have enough to cover it. There it was. The real reason for the call. Nathan exhaled slowly. So, now I'm important again. That's not fair, his mother whispered. You are important. You've always been. He clenched his jaw. Really? Because you threw me out like garbage the second Lily needed to be coddled. And you never once apologized for it. His mother let out a weak sob. We didn't throw you out. We thought it was best at the time. For who? Nathan snapped. Because it sure as hell wasn't best for me. There was silence on the other end. Then, in a broken whisper, his mother tried again. Please, Nathan. Just come home. Just for a little while. Lily needs you. We need you. Ava would love to see her uncle. Ava. Nathan hesitated. His niece was the only person in that house he didn't blame. She hadn't asked to be born into this mess. She hadn't been the one to exile him. And yet, he knew exactly what was happening. This wasn't about reconnecting. It was about fixing the mess they had created. "Let me get this straight," Nathan said, his voice cold. "You need money. You need someone to help take care of Lily. And you think that's going to be me?" "We're family," his mother pleaded. "Family takes care of each other." Nathan couldn't help it, he laughed. A short, bitter sound. "Oh, now we're family? Where was that sentiment when you shipped me off to Florida so Lily wouldn't have to deal with my existence?" "That was years ago," she cried. "We regret it, okay? But what were we supposed to do? Lily was pregnant, she was struggling. And I wasn't?" Nathan's voice cut through her excuses like a blade. "I was 17, thrown out of my own home, left to figure out everything on my own. And you never once checked on me. You never once said sorry. You only call when you need something." His mother was sobbing now. "Please, Nathan. If not for us, then for Ava. She deserves better than this." That was the cruel part. They knew how to manipulate him. They knew the one weak spot he had left. Ava. And for that reason alone, he finally exhaled and said, "I'll think about it." His mother gasped. "Oh, thank you, sweetheart, we can." "I said I'll think about it," he cut her off. "I'm not promising anything." And with that, he hung up. 2 weeks later, Nathan stood outside his parents' house. It was smaller than he remembered. Dingier. The paint was chipping, the lawn was overgrown, and there was a general air of neglect hanging over the place. It wasn't the house he had grown up in, it was a relic slowly falling apart just like the people inside it. He took a deep breath and knocked. The door swung open within seconds, as if they had been waiting for him. His mother stood there, eyes red and swollen, looking like she had aged 10 years since he last saw her. "Nathan," she breathed, reaching out as if she wanted to hug him. He stepped back. "Let's not pretend we're something we're not," he said flatly. Her face crumbled, but she stepped aside to let him in. The inside of the house was worse. Clutter everywhere. Bills stacked on the kitchen table. The unmistakable scent of stress, old furniture, and desperation. And then there was Lily. She was sprawled out on the couch, leg in a heavy cast, face pale. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Nathan," she said, her voice uncertain. "Wow. You actually came." He crossed his arms. "You sound surprised." She let out a weak laugh. "I am." There was an awkward silence. His father was the first to speak. "Nathan, son, we..." "Don't," Nathan cut him off. "Just tell me what you want." His father sighed heavily. "The hospital bills are over 50 grand. The insurance didn't cover everything. We're 2 months behind on the mortgage. We're barely holding on. And Ava's tuition." Nathan held up a hand. "Enough. I get it." His mother's hands trembled. "Nathan, please. We don't need much. Just enough to get back on our feet. Maybe a few months' worth of help? And what?" Nathan's eyes darkened. "You want me to move back? Take care of Lily while she heals? Pretend like none of this ever happened?" Lily flinched. "You're asking me to sacrifice my life," Nathan said, his voice like ice. "For the same people who didn't give a damn when I was struggling." Silence. His mother whispered, "We're desperate." Nathan looked around the room. Looked at the people who had abandoned him. Looked at Lily, who had never once lifted a finger to help herself. And then he turned toward the door. "Nathan," his mother gasped. "Please, don't walk away." He paused, then turned slightly. "You made your choice years ago. Now, I'm making mine." And without another word, he left. This time, for good. Nathan hadn't planned to stay long. He had come to see things for himself, to confirm what he already knew, that his parents were drowning, that Lily was still as useless as ever, and that they were all looking at him as their last lifeline. But then, Ava walked into the room. She was smaller than he had expected, barely reaching his waist, with big, wide eyes that held none of the entitlement or manipulation he had grown to associate with this house. She hesitated at the sight of him, shifting nervously behind the couch, gripping the fabric of her dress like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to approach. His mother's voice was overly bright, forced. "Ava, sweetheart, this is your Uncle Nathan." Ava's small voice barely rose above a whisper. "Hi." Nathan exhaled slowly. She was innocent in all of this. She hadn't asked to be raised in a crumbling household by an incompetent mother and desperate grandparent. She hadn't been the one to exile him. But now she was paying for their mistakes. He crouched down slightly, meeting her eyes. "Hey kid." Ava hesitated, then gave him the tiniest smile before quickly looking down. Something twisted in Nathan's chest. His mother took that as an opportunity to push forward. "She's been asking about you for weeks," she said quickly. "We've told her all about you. She's been so excited to meet her uncle." Nathan didn't take the bait. He knew what she was doing, trying to guilt him into thinking he had missed out on something. But the truth was, they had been the ones who kept him away. Ava tugged at her grandmother's sleeve. "Can I show him my drawings?" Sarah beamed. "Of course, sweetheart." Ava scrambled to grab a small folder from the table and ran back, opening it up for Nathan. Page after page of crayon drawings, stick figures, wobbly houses, and stars that were drawn too big. But in the center of most of them was something else. A figure she had clearly tried hard to draw, standing next to her. "Who's this?" Nathan asked. Ava shyly glanced up at him. "You." Nathan's throat tightened. Before he could respond, his father cleared his throat. "Nathan, son, we." Nathan knew what was coming. They had softened him up. Now came the real reason he was here. He straightened, turning to face them fully. "Let's skip the nonsense. You want money. How much?" His mother looked hurt. "It's not just about money, Nathan, It's always about money," he interrupted. "So let's not pretend otherwise." His father, ever the more direct one, sighed. 50,000 would cover everything. The hospital bills, the mortgage, Ava's school tuition, some extra for... Nathan let out a short laugh. "Extra for what? Lily's personal expenses? Her shopping? Whatever excuse she'll come up with next." Lily, who had been mostly silent, stiffened. "I just broke my leg. I can't work right now." "What do you want me to do, Nathan?" "I want you to grow up," he said bluntly. "But since that's probably never going to happen, let me make this simple for you." Nathan leaned forward, his voice cold and controlled. "I'll help. But on my terms." His parents exchanged a glance. "What terms?" his father asked cautiously. Nathan folded his arms. "1. I will only pay for Ava's needs directly. I'm not handing over a cent to you, and especially not to Lily." His mother bristled. "Nathan." 2, he continued, ignoring her. "Dad, you will be the one handling any financial matters. Not Mom. Not Lily. If you want money for something, it comes through you." Lily's expression darkened. "Are you serious?" Nathan didn't even look at her. 3, he said, voice sharp. "Once you recover, Lily, you will enroll in job training. I don't care what field. But you will start learning how to support yourself." Lily let out a harsh laugh. "Are you joking? You think you get to control my life just because you have money?" "Yes," Nathan said flatly. Lily's face twisted with anger. "Screw you, Nathan." "Then don't take my money," he shot back. Problem solved. His father, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "Nathan, be reasonable. She's just getting back on her feet." "She's never been on her feet," Nathan snapped. "And that's the problem." His mother grabbed his arm. "Nathan, please, she's your sister." "No," he said, shaking her off. "She's your mistake. I'm just here for Ava." Lily's eyes burned with fury. "You think you're so much better than us, don't you?" Nathan tilted his head slightly. "I am better than you. Because I actually take care of myself." Lily's mouth opened, then shut. His father exhaled heavily. "Fine. We'll do it your way." Nathan nodded. "Good choice." His mother looked between them helplessly. "Lily, honey, just think about it, okay? Nathan's only trying to help." Lily scoffed. "Oh yeah. Out of the kindness of his heart." Nathan smirked. "No, actually. Out of spite." His parents flinched. Lily glared at him but didn't argue further. Nathan turned back to Ava, who had been quietly watching everything unfold. "What's your favorite ice cream?" Ava blinked, caught off guard. Cookies and cream." Nathan pulled out his car keys. "Let's go get some." His mother gasped. "Nathan, we were still. We're done here," he cut her off. Then he looked down at Ava. "Come on, kid." Ava looked up at her grandmother, as if asking for permission. His mother hesitated, but she must have seen the determination on Nathan's face. With a tight nod, she said, "Okay, sweetheart. Go with your uncle. Ava lit up, practically bouncing as she grabbed her jacket. Nathan looked at Lily one last time. Enjoy the couch. Then he walked out, Ava following close behind. As he drove away from the house, listening to Ava excitedly chatter about her drawings, something settled inside him. He would never forgive his parents. He would never respect Lily. But Ava? She still had a chance. And for her, he would stay. Nathan no longer felt anger when he thought about his parents. The rage that had fueled him for years had burned out, leaving behind something colder, pity. They had made their choices, and now they were trapped by them. His father, Daniel, was aging faster than his years, shoulders weighed down by financial stress. His mother, Sarah, was exhausted, still bending over backward to protect Lily from consequences. And Lily was as useless as ever, still sitting in the same house, still refusing to grow up, still expecting the world to bend to her needs. Nathan, meanwhile, was thriving. He had returned to Florida, throwing himself back into his work, expanding his business beyond what he had ever imagined. He had high-profile clients now, steady contracts, and a reputation as someone who knew what he was doing. Every month, his income grew. His life was his own, unburdened by the weight of his family's failures. The only part of them he kept? Ava. Unlike her mother, Ava wanted to learn. She was curious, eager, and full of untapped potential. After their first meeting, Nathan had made an effort to be there for her. Not for Lily, not for his parents, but for the little girl who had done nothing to deserve the mess she was born into. He called her often, helped her with school projects over video chat, and even sent her a laptop so she could start learning coding. At first, his mother had tried to control it. "You don't have to do all that," she had told him over the phone. "We're managing just fine." "You're not managing," Nathan had corrected. "And if I want to help Ava, I will. Not for you. Not for Lily. For her." His mother had gone quiet. She knew better than to push. Lily, on the other hand, hated it. "She's my daughter," she had spat at him over the phone one night. "Not yours. You don't get to act like some hero just because you have money." Nathan had laughed. "Funny. I don't remember you acting like her mother, either." She had hung up on him. It didn't matter. Ava wanted him in her life. And Nathan? He had no intention of letting her grow up thinking that laziness and entitlement were normal. One day, Ava called him, excited. "Uncle Nathan, I made a game." Nathan raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his office chair. "A game?" "Yeah. You taught me the basics, so I made this little thing where a cat jumps over obstacles. It's so cool." Nathan smiled. "Send it to me. I want to see it." Ava giggled. "Okay. But you have to promise to give me real feedback." Nathan chuckled. "Kid, I'll be your toughest critic." She sent the file. He opened it. It was basic. Just a simple platform game, but for an 8-year-old? It was impressive. "You coded all of this?" he asked, genuinely surprised. "Yep." Nathan exhaled. "You're smarter than half the people I work with." Ava giggled again. "Does that mean I can have a job?" Nathan smirked. "Ask me again in 10 years. Moments like these reminded him of something he had never expected. He liked being an uncle. He liked having someone in his family who actually wanted to succeed. Someone who didn't expect life to be handed to them on a silver platter. His mother saw it too. And she hated it. "Nathan," she told him one evening, her voice tired. "You're too hard on Lily." Nathan scoffed. "No, I'm not hard enough on Lily. And neither are you. She's trying." "She's not trying," Nathan snapped. "She's making excuses. Just like she's always done. And you keep letting her." His mother hesitated. "She's been looking for jobs." "No, she says she's looking," Nathan corrected. "And you believe it because it's easier than admitting you failed her." Silence. Nathan sighed. "When are you going to stop covering for her?" His mother's voice cracked. "She's my daughter." "So am I," Nathan said coldly. "But you never covered for me." That shut her up. His father, at least, had finally come around to reality. One night, while Ava was asleep, Daniel called him. "Nathan," his father sighed. "I should have been tougher on her." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "What, regret kicking in now that you're broke?" Daniel chuckled bitterly. "Maybe." Then, more seriously, "You were right about Lily. She's got no drive, no ambition. If we had pushed her harder, maybe things would be different." Nathan exhaled. "Maybe." His father was quiet for a moment. Then, "I want you to know. I respect what you've done. What you've built. He hesitated. "I just wish things had been different." Nathan didn't know how to respond to that. So he just said, "Yeah." Daniel didn't push further. Maybe he knew there was no fixing the past. Maybe he was just too tired to try. Either way, the conversation ended with an unspoken understanding. His father didn't expect Nathan to save them anymore. His mother, though? She still clung to the past. You could help more, she told him one afternoon, her voice lined with resentment. You have the money. We wouldn't be struggling if you. I wouldn't be struggling if you had supported me. Nathan cut her off. You didn't. And now, you expect me to act like the son you threw away. She flinched. We didn't throw you away. Yes, you did, Nathan said flatly. And now you're just dealing with the consequences. His mother started crying. Nathan didn't feel anything. He used to think he wanted an apology, some kind of acknowledgement of what they had done. But now? It didn't even matter. He had won. Not in a spiteful way. Not in a way that made him want to rub it in their faces. But in the simplest, most satisfying way possible. He had built a life without them. And now? They needed him. His mother's cries didn't change that. His father's regret didn't change that. Even Lily's bitterness didn't change that. Nathan was free. And that was the best revenge of all.